Today, we've got the privilege of being joined by Mal McHutchinson, CEO of Interactive, Australia's largest privately owned IT company. Thanks for joining us today, Mal. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and the Interactive business?
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Nice to chat with you. As you said, I'm Mal. I've been the CEO of Interactive for approaching 3 years now. You're very kind to remind everybody we're the largest privately owned IT services company in Australia. Practically, that means we do three things. Half of our business is break fix of servers, switches and routers to the enterprise, a great list of customers in there. The middle part of our business, we provide a number of data center solutions, run and operate a number of data centers ourselves, and also provide business continuity, which in times like this is particularly relevant. The third part of our business is around cloud and managed services. So we provide services to assist the mid-size organisations migrate their applications into the cloud.
Can you share a little bit with us around the role that purpose has played in the current climate for you?
Given that our purpose is to keep technology human, we thought about how we can help our staff on the home front, and therefore how we can extend some of our services to partners and other family members of our staff who have been affected. Equally, when we have customers in periods of high stress, what is it that we do that allows them to feel comforted that there's somebody going to be there to provide them an essential service when there are no rules? So for me as a leader across my executive team and more broadly, it's been so galvanising for me to be able to remind everybody of why we exist. And when I've conducted broadcasts with staff, when I've spoken to customers, everything starts and finishes with our purpose.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your purpose and I guess why it's important to you as the CEO, but equally why it's important to your people and your customers?
So, Ben, when I got here a couple of years ago, I knew what the business did, and I had great ease and ability to talk about us in very economic terms. We had a very clear set of values that the business operated within, but I always struggled when people would ask me why we exist. What is it that brings you all together? And I really struggled with it for a number of years, and I felt like it was very much the missing link. So over the last 18 months, we've been working very hard about trying to distill what it is for us that is our true north, what it is for us that gets us up every morning, and what it is for us that ultimately allows us to say we exist for these simple reasons.
It sounds to me like purpose not only plays a role for you around your people and your culture, but equally around the way your customers actually experience the business.
Sure.
So is that therefore then something that marketing and HR within your leadership team are working on together and co-creating?
Very much, and it's had to follow a nice natural series of events. And what I mean by that is, when we started out our journey to be clear about our purpose and the work that we did around it, one of the things that I think we did well with assistance was not rushing it, letting it sort of ruminate for a little bit, but actually knowing that we were going to land a clear purpose, thinking ahead about how we would launch it and activate it. And we did that very deliberately internally. So it's something that is language we use internally for our staff. But because it sits so naturally with us, we do think it absolutely has a place in how we identify ourselves in the broader market. Because I do think there's something unique about our purpose. I do think there's something unique about Interactive. And when people come and visit us and work with us, they do see a very human face and side to technology, which is often a pleasant surprise. So I think that the opportunity for us to be much clearer about our use of the words keep technology human beyond our internal purpose, but into a broader environment, means it absolutely is in the domain of marketing, people and culture, in the same way as it's owned by every single function in the business.
It's fascinating to see that you've been able to operationalize something that think most organizations see as quite a conceptual, emotional side, but the fact that you've been able to apply it into decision making.
Let me give you a good example as well, Ben. Sorry to interrupt, but when we first started operating like this, so we've had the technology to conduct business like this for a while. You may well have seen this yourself, but initially there were a number of people that were a little reluctant to not have the cameras on and talk to people because they were reluctant about showing their homes and studies and desktops and kitchen tables. We embraced that really, really quickly and said to people, listen, if we exist to keep technology human, let's get to look inside your lives and take the background off. And it was a real bringing together moment for staff as much as anything else. And we've sort of made it an unofficial rule to try and have people show their videos and show their lives. And it's been liberating, and people have got to know each other in a different way, therefore collaborated in a different way as well. And without having the common language of purpose, that would have been a very difficult thing to inject into the business when there's a crisis like this going on.
We're hearing snippets from other organizations around people becoming less territorial, and as a result, silos are joining up.
Yep.
And knowledge is being shared and decisions are being made faster, and the potential of a productivity uplift. So I guess the question really is for a lot of CEOs, what can we learn from this behaviorally? But equally, how do we sustain some of those positive benefits that have come through once it's gone?
Yeah, look, I've had similar feedback, both from an internal and an external perspective. From an internal perspective, as I said, we've got about 600 staff, and whilst you might sit next to somebody or near somebody, you may not really know that person. And COVID has allowed people that have known each other for many years to get to know each other in a different way. As we think about returning people to the office, the feedback that we're getting and the lessons that we're learning is that people want flexibility. And for us, given we've got the technologies, given what we're learning through this COVID crisis, I've got a much higher degree of trust in people working much more flexibly than ever before. We're listening, and I guess for me that's been a lesson, to listen harder to staff.
Good on you. That's a wonderful lesson to learn. It kind of leads me to my next question, which was, over the past 2 months, we've all faced different challenges. What would you say has been one of your biggest challenges that you may not have expected? How did you overcome it? What were some of the lessons learned that came through?
Look, I'll make a light-hearted start, but like many people, we as an organisation were scrambling for toilet paper. And when we provide services to house people coming and running their operations out of our facilities, a lack of toilet paper could have actually brought our business to its knees. Now, in 25 years of executive management, leadership and education, I never thought that would be something that might bring us down. So we navigated through that. Probably been one of the most stressful things for me that I had to grapple with, and it was probably after the first 2 weeks of COVID, was balancing the duty of care I have to my staff who are on the front line, at reception, welcoming customers, versus continuing to provide essential services to customers. And the balance of those two things was quite delicate, because I think initially no one was quite sure how this was going to play out. And we have hundreds of customers that rely on us to continue to provide them services. And to do that, I need my own team to help me with that.
There's a lot to be learned. I think we're almost out of time. So, I want to say thank you for sharing. It's always a pleasure to listen and learn from you. Before I do let you go, it's probably one final question. And that is, if you could travel back in time and go and visit yourself on day one of this job, what advice would you give yourself?
Look, the work's not done 3 years in. I'm very proud of what we've achieved over the last couple of years, although there's still plenty to do. Probably the one thing that I would do if I could go back in time would be to ask more questions of my staff more regularly, because everybody does, they poll staff, on an annual or a frequent basis, and we do as well. But some of the gold that I have obtained from communicating more to staff over the last couple of months has been really instructive and really powerful, because I think inevitably when you've got big challenges in a business, your staff usually know the answer, or they can be really clear in helping you frame up how to think about responding to them. And for us, that's probably been something that we've learned in the last little while. So if I could go back, I'd definitely be asking more questions of my staff more frequently.
Wise words, Mal. Wise words. Thank you for joining us today and sharing, and thanks to all of you for tuning in.